Waste, whose problem is it? It sounds like the start of a snappy game show for Channel 4. If anyone's got that idea, maybe that Waste, whose problem is it, is the next game show out there, or maybe not. 2 days every year you come together and you have a conference, and the agenda is absolutely packed with interesting items. Do you ever manage to get to the point where there's nothing on the agenda, Steve? No. Is there always extra space? How long do you think you need to run a conference to actually deal with all the problems associated with waste? Well, I think you'd need one of these perpetual conferences that in effect circles the earth, and you still wouldn't have solved the problems that are there. It's what makes the industry fascinating, it's what draws us together, it's what helps the lively debates that we have. Progress. What have we seen? I've got the curse of the blipper. Progress. What have we seen over the last few years? Well, you'll be familiar with the huge strides, the transformational changes that have been made in the waste industry. Recycling rates from down there at 10% up to 45%. The amount of waste being sent to landfill, 80 million tonnes, and over a period of time, 10 or 15 years, it drops in half. Isn't that remarkable? Brilliant progress that's there. We've also seen adaptation in the industry as well, the amount of waste that is being treated and where waste goes. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner there, bottom right-hand corner to you, sorry, you'll see that fellow there, his name's Mel, actually. He works for the Environment Agency, and now Mel's got a job that he would not have had several years ago. He's a retired policeman and he comes to work for us, and he thoroughly enjoys his job. He spends every day down at Felixstowe opening containers. He does about 20 or 25 a day. Our hit rate is probably, we can almost choose our hit rate in terms of where we target, from 90% down to about 60% of things we find wrong through intelligence-led inspection that's there. Why has Mel got a job there? Because the amount of waste that's being exported has absolutely rocketed, and we've adapted our regulation to use the intelligence we've got, so people like Mel can then actually intervene at the ports, and we can send our regulatory effort into other areas. 8 times in 3 years, or an 8-fold increase in 3 years, the amount of waste that is going abroad. We could talk about the successes we've got. We could talk about how we tried to get out of the hair of people who want to do the right thing and be a smarter, better regulator. But are the problems still there? Absolutely. Let me talk you through a horror show. Top left-hand corner. You could have all sorts of guesses about what that is, but if I said that is quality fuel, it's RDF, at a dockside, you look at it and think, well, no, it's not actually. We have here, one of my other colleagues is there staring at, it's not the Great Wall of China, it's the Great Wall of Tyres. Over 1 million tyres one individual got a few years ago, Carl Steel. And there it is, that's one of the areas he dumps them in. Convinced the landowner he was operating in the tyre industry legitimately, took the money and ran. He got a custodial sentence and Proceeds of Crime Act, but Carl Steel's legacy still lives on. We have in the bottom left-hand corner, we have people misdescribing their waste and burying it and pretending it was nice clean soil, and then we come and dug it up. And then we have the issues of waste fires. The problems persist. Whatever we do in terms of our regulation, no matter how many ways we adapt, the fact is we are not running out of business. We're not at the point where we're saying, well, I wonder what we can do next week. Why? Very similar to a lot of the thoughts that Chris was talking about. Chris described them as vulnerabilities. I'll put a crime map up there. Now, I know I'm amongst friends, and I know I can share this with you not thinking, oh, that's a really good business opportunity, but follow the red arrows, and you will see that you can make money in waste. Now, this is a very oversimplified approach to the waste industry, okay, very top level. If we drilled down into maybe waste electrical and electronic equipment, the map would be much bigger, okay? And there would be 22, 23 different crimes you could commit by bleeding waste in or out of the system to make money. We've identified those crimes, we look for tremors in the data, and then we target people. That's what we do. But what we have is a system, as stuff has come out of landfills, as stuff is now being handled in multiple ways, and as benefit is being got from that resource, So people have moved into this industry or exploited this industry in a way which is in nobody's interests apart from their own. It could sound depressing, actually, but I don't think it is depressing. Because when you look at the complex map that is there, you look at the number of arrows that you could follow, well, actually, waste sites do not operate in isolation. There's a whole series of ins and outs, a whole infrastructure they need to survive. So, for instance, if we were going to run a criminal enterprise, and this isn't a masterclass in doing so by any means, if you were, you're probably going to need some people. And those people probably need paying at some point. And then at some point, you know, it's not just cash in hand. We're talking about operations that are very well organised, some of which employ extremely talented accountants. And there might be a compliance to a level with tax legislation, with health and safety. With a business, well, you need to operate in the legitimate world. So you might need to register your company in some way. You might have your directors. You will send in your company accounts. You will employ legal advice, tax advice. You will probably be even raising money in some way to invest while you're carrying out your nefarious activities to one side. The site, well, you're going to need somewhere to do this. You're going to need land. The operation, you get the idea. Okay? It is not waste crime is not a closed system. It needs ins and outs. And fundamentally, if you're going to operate an illegal waste operation, ignoring the fraud issues around that could be indulged in, you need a supply of waste. And that there is the key to this. It's the waste. One of the key things we can operate and work very closely with HMRC colleagues, with other law enforcement agencies, with other regulators. But actually, just think about it. Just indulge in an experiment. If all of the people here and all the influence that you have over moving waste, imagine if you could stop any waste you have the influence over for ever ending up in the hands of criminals or being dealt with in a way which is well below the standards to be expected. What would happen to the problem? The problem would get smaller. And then if you could tell 2 or 3 of your friends to why don't you handle your waste in a way that it never ends up in the hands of criminals or being treated in a way that causes environmental damage, well, then the problem gets even smaller. And the transformations that we've seen in terms of landfill rates up here to down there, recycling rates from here to up there, wouldn't it be interesting if we could make a transformation when it comes to crime? But this isn't just about the regulator. I could employ lots of people called Mel, or any other name you want to choose, and they could do really smart intelligence regulation. But actually that wouldn't actually fundamentally solve the problem. When you stand back and look at your waste, the waste that you influence there, so what happens if your waste does end up here? We have a picture of an East African beach with goats and a boat. It's shocking, isn't it? In the corner down here, we have a waste mountain next to a house. And you know, the ironic thing about this is, I look at this picture and I feel so sorry for those people living there. Do you know the people 2 doors along, they've actually got a skip. They've actually gone out and paid for a skip, right? And then they've loaded the skip really neatly and they're living next to that there. What happens if your waste ends up there? Well, it could cause misery to other people. There are potential risks associated with it, depending on the quantity of waste with there. But would you want your waste to end up there? So, single take-home message, know where your waste ends up. And if we all did that, and we work with the right amount of regulation, targeting those bad people, we could see a transformational change in the waste industry.